Walk into a pub anywhere in Australia and you already know the scene. The footy's on, someone's ordering a schnitty, schooners are clinking, and the whole place hums with that easygoing Friday Arvo energy. But if you glance just past the bar, you'll notice something else. Tucked into the back of the room, humming quietly, are the Pokies. A row of machines always ready for someone to sit down and start slapping. While most Aussies wouldn't think twice about seeing a few Pokie machines in a local pub, those machines are at the center of a global outlier. Australia is obsessed with it. Statistically, no country on earth loses more money to gambling per person than Australia. According to data from Statista, the average adult lost over 1,800 AUD to gambling in 2023. That figure includes everyone, not just the regulars or high rollers, everyone. If you're over 18, statistically speaking, you're part of that loss. And when you take a step back and look at the national picture, that number becomes even more staggering. Now multiply that by the population and it adds up fast. Depending on the source, Australians lose anywhere from $12 billion to over $31.5 billion every year to gambling. But here's the twist. It's not flashy Vegas-style casinos taking the lion's share. It's pokies, the quiet ones, the machines sitting in the suburban clubs, corner pubs, and neighborhood RSLs. They're not front and center, but they are everywhere, and they're doing the heavy lifting when it comes to draining bank accounts. To really grasp the scale of this, let's look at New South Wales, which has an astonishing number of Pokie machines, over 86,000 across the state. That's more than some entire countries. That stat sounds made up, but it's real, and it tells you something about how deeply embedded gambling is in everyday life. The machines aren't tucked away in glitzy, exclusive venues. They're 5 minutes from your house, sitting in places that serve a delicious palmy and host trivia night. You don't have to go looking for them, they're already where you are. But how did we get here? This didn't happen by accident. Gambling in Australia has roots going all the way back to the colonial days. Horse racing and betting on it was one of the earliest forms of legal recreation, and it was seen as something communal, even classy. It was tied to events, social gatherings, and a growing sense of national identity. That early cultural comfort with gambling laid the groundwork for what came next. So, when pokie machines were legalized in New South Wales in the 1950s, it wasn't a hard sell. They were marketed as entertainment, harmless fun that could also raise money for local clubs and support veterans organizations. A win-win. That framing, pokies as community assets, still echoes today. And that community benefit angle stuck. It became part of the justification. Even today, pubs and clubs argue that pokie revenue helps fund junior sports teams, renovate facilities, and support local events. And in a technical sense, they're not wrong. Some of the money does go back into the community. But let's be honest, these machines aren't donation boxes. They're highly engineered systems built to maximize profit, and the majority of that profit comes from a small group of repeat players who are most often financially stressed, socially isolated, or struggling with addiction. Despite this, the narrative hasn't really changed, and yet we still talk about pokies like they're a community service, like they're some quirky local tradition. They're not. They're profit machines, and they've been normalized under the cover of club loyalty and grassroots sports. We've wrapped exploitation in the language of community, and very few people are questioning the cost. And here's where it gets even messier. Follow the money trail a little further and you'll find the government right in the middle of it. What makes it even harder to untangle is just how deeply the government benefits from the setup. In New South Wales alone, gambling taxes bring in over $2 billion a year, funding public services like hospitals, schools, roads, and emergency services. So, on paper, gambling revenue looks like a public good. But here's the catch. The same governments responsible for protecting citizens from gambling harm are financially dependent on the harm continuing. They're effectively addicted to gambling revenue. That creates a baked-in conflict of interest. The regulators and policymakers who should be tightening controls are also watching the bottom line. Reforming the system means threatening their own revenue stream, and that's a hard sell for any treasurer, especially when budgets are tight and political cycles are short. So the response has been predictable, to say the least. Reforms get watered down and consultations drag on. Trials are proposed but never scaled, reports are just there to gather dust, and there's always a reason to delay. Because meaningful reform means governments voluntarily giving up one of their most reliable cash flows, and history shows they rarely do that unless they're forced to. While the Pokies have long been the silent machinery of Australia's gambling economy, something newer and louder has stepped into the spotlight. Over the last 10 to 15 years, another beast has taken over, and this one doesn't sit in the back of a pub. It lives on your phone, it follows you around, it's in your pocket, on your screen, in your notifications, and it probably sponsored your favorite sports team. We're talking about online sports betting, the flashy, hyper-marketed, always available cousin of the traditional pokie. Watch a single NRL or AFL match and it's impossible to miss. Odds flash on screen mid-game like they're as normal as the score. Commentators casually drop phrases like the line or the over-under as if everyone at home is following a bet. Ads feature big personalities, often former players or comedians, spouting catchphrases, stacking multis, and making it look like betting is half the fun of watching. It doesn't even feel like gambling anymore. It feels like being a more invested fan, like proving you know the game better than your mates. And of course, that illusion is by design. The marketing behind sports betting is razor sharp. It leans into identity. You're not placing a bet, you're backing your team. You're not gambling, you're showing loyalty, being confident, competitive, even clever. It's positioned as part of the experience, like the face paint or team merch. This kind of messaging is extremely effective. It's designed to be social, casual, and cool. Betting is pitched as something you do with your mates, on the couch or at the pub, while shouting at a screen. It's part of the banter, the group chat, the vibe, and it's working. Because when gambling is packaged as entertainment, not risk, people let their guard down. The danger doesn't look like danger anymore, it looks like a laugh. But underneath the laughs and lingo is a system built to exploit your attention and your wallet. These platforms take your bets and they track everything. Every team you follow, every market you click, every dollar you win or lose. They use that data to shape your experience. Got a favorite team? You'll get custom odds the night before the game. Missed a few weeks? They'll offer a free bet to pull you back in. It's personalized manipulation. And the language they use is part of the game too. Boosted odds, risk-free, profit guarantee, it all creates the illusion of control, like you're being smart with your money. But there's no such thing as a risk-free bet. Every incentive is designed to blur that line just enough to make you forget there's actual cash on the line. And it never really stops. Push notifications ping during live games, emails offer you one-day only deals, a win results in more encouragement for you to reinvest. A loss results in them dangling another chance. It's a constant stream of nudges and hooks designed to keep you spinning the wheel, even when you think you've had enough. Which brings us to the core issue. This isn't entertainment. This is behavioral engineering. It uses the same psychology as pokies, social media, even casino game design. Variable rewards, near misses, FOMO, urgency, it's all there, just dressed up in team colors and matey vibes. And then came a moment that supercharged it all, the pandemic. During the COVID-19 lockdowns, with physical venues closed and people stuck at home, online betting absolutely exploded. The Australian Gambling Research Centre found that participation in online wagering spiked during that time. People were bored, isolated, and constantly on their devices, and the betting companies knew exactly how to capitalize. While the rest of the world slowed down, this part of the industry hit the gas. And the reach of this new gambling wave goes far beyond just younger generations. Sports betting reaches across the generations, from university students to retirees. The difference is, it's now built into the everyday digital experience. There's no need to walk into a tab or a casino. Your smartphone does it all, instantly, anytime you want. You could be betting from your couch, on the bus, at work, or during halftime at your kid's footy game. There's no friction, and that's exactly the point. Now, if all that sounds rather sinister, it's because it is. All of this would be worrying enough if the systems were neutral, but they're not. These platforms are designed with the same principles that make pokies so addictive. Variable rewards, near misses, bright visuals, constant feedback. The moment you start to pull away, they find a reason to reel you back in. There are loyalty programs, free bets, deposit match offers, and streak rewards. The longer you stay, the more they give you, and the more you lose. Which brings us to something most people don't realize. This isn't about being weak, it's about being targeted. It's important to understand that gambling addiction is a matter of design. These systems are built to hijack the brain, and the mechanics behind pokies and betting apps are rooted in behavioral psychology, exploiting the same reward circuits that make social media addictive or video games hard to put down. Variable reinforcement, anticipation loops, sound and visual cues, all perfectly tuned to keep you engaged. But there's one crucial difference here. Unlike your phone notifications or loot box skins, this system is directly tied to your money and your sense of personal worth. And it doesn't take much for that money to start spiraling out of control. Most people don't begin with a huge loss or a high stakes risk. It usually starts small, $10 on a weekend game, a quick slap after dinner, a punt during halftime. No big deal. But then comes a near miss, a loss that was almost a win, and that's when the psychology kicks in. Because your brain doesn't register gambling logically, it processes it emotionally. Those near wins actually light up the same part of the brain as an actual win. It feels like progress, like you're close. It creates momentum that doesn't exist. Your rational mind knows it's random, but your emotional mind thinks you're on the verge of a breakthrough. That belief, the idea that the next one will hit, that you're due for a win, is what traps people. That's when casual gambling turns into something far more dangerous. It becomes a chase, not just chasing your money back, but chasing that feeling. The anticipation, the rush, the sense of being in control even when you're not. And that illusion of control is powerful, especially in sports betting, where you can convince yourself that knowledge gives you an edge. You follow the stats, you know the form, you're strategizing, not gambling. Except the outcomes are still unpredictable. The odds are still against you. At some point, it stops being a game. Over time, people stop betting for fun and start betting to recover, to undo the damage, to get back to zero. That's when it stops being entertainment and becomes survival. The wins don't feel like wins anymore. They're just ways to stay in the game a little longer. The losses start to hurt more, the lies begin, and the guilt creeps in. And the industry knows exactly how this works. All the while, the system keeps working exactly as it was designed to, feeding you hope, rewarding you occasionally, keeping you locked in with just enough incentive to try again. You don't have to win to stay hooked, you just have to think you might. But here's what we often don't talk about. What happens after the spiral? The damage doesn't always show up right away. For some, it starts quietly. A missed bill here, a white lie about spending there, but it adds up. Debts grow, relationships strain, anxiety creeps in. According to the Alliance for Gambling Reform, more than 400 suicides in Australia each year are linked to gambling harm, and that number is likely conservative. The personal toll is enormous, but it stays mostly hidden, partly because of stigma and partly because the system is designed to keep things quiet. Meanwhile, while people lose everything, someone else is raking it in. The industry keeps thriving, and that's no accident. The gambling lobby in Australia is one of the most powerful in the country. Companies like Sportsbet, Tabcorp, and Clubs New South Wales pour millions into political donations and lobbying. They have close ties to both major parties, and they're not shy about flexing their influence when reforms are proposed. And anytime someone tries to push back, the narrative gets spun. Every time a serious recommendation is made, like banning gambling ads, capping betting limits, or introducing mandatory breaks, the industry pushes back hard. They argue it'll hurt small businesses, reduce community funding, or infringe on people's freedom to enjoy a bit of fun, and more often than not, they win. What we get instead are soft reforms, voluntary codes of conduct, gamble responsibly campaigns, and public awareness ads that do little to change the underlying systems. Even the reforms that do make it through often miss the mark. Take BetStop, for example, a national self-exclusion register launched in 2023. It's a good idea on paper. You can ban yourself from all licensed betting platforms in one go, but the system relies on individuals opting in, and enforcement remains patchy. There's no mandatory registration, no tracking of unlicensed operators, and limited public education around how it works. It's a band-aid, not a cure. And the Pokies are still getting a free pass. The idea of implementing $1 maximum bets or mandatory pre-commitment cards has been floating around for years. These changes could genuinely reduce harm, but they keep getting delayed, blocked, or quietly shelved. Why? Because they would actually work. And if people lose less money, the industry and the government makes less money. It's that simple. But if we're really being honest, the biggest challenge isn't policy, it's mindset. Ask most Aussies about gambling and they'll shrug. It's just a bit of fun. That phrase is baked into the national attitude. A few slaps at the pub, a bet on the Melbourne Cup, a multi during Origin. For a lot of people, that really is all it is. Harmless entertainment, a part of tradition, a social ritual, something you do with mates or once a year in the office sweep. And for the majority, that's how it stays. But when something is seen as harmless by the majority, it becomes dangerously easy to overlook the harm experienced by the minority. That shrug, that casual indifference acts like a cultural blindfold. Because if everyone does it, how could it possibly be a problem? And so the damage goes unseen. It's private, quiet, and incredibly easy to miss. People suffering from gambling harm might still show up to work. They might still laugh at the pub, but behind the scenes, they're drowning in debt, lying to loved ones, or living with a constant sense of guilt and anxiety. It chips away at self-esteem, trust, relationships, and still, nobody talks about it. And the silence feeds the shame. And because it's so normalized, the people struggling often internalize it. They don't see it as a system that was built to exploit them, they see it as a personal failure. I should have stopped. I'm just bad with money. It's my fault. That shame becomes a barrier to asking for help, which only deepens the spiral. Some people don't even realize they have a problem until the consequences hit. Missed rent, a broken relationship, or a desperate phone call to a payday lender. We don't treat it like a health issue. We treat it like a lifestyle choice. And that choice is so ingrained in the national identity that questioning it feels almost un-Australian. But when harm is happening this often and this quietly, maybe the real question is, why are we still calling this just fun? But here's the hopeful part. It can change. Other countries are already proving that change is possible. The UK has banned gambling with credit cards and introduced affordability checks. Italy banned gambling ads completely. New Zealand has taken steps to reduce pokie harm with stricter venue regulations and better support systems. These are practical, effective policies that prioritize public health over profits. And slowly, Australia is catching on. BetStop is a step. Trials for cashless gaming cards are underway in some states. Public pressure around gambling ads, especially during sports broadcasts, is growing fast. Even political momentum is shifting. But real change will take more than tweaks. It will take a culture shift, one that stops seeing gambling harm as someone else's problem and starts treating it like a national issue worth tackling head on. Because this isn't just about dollars and data, it's about who we are, about what we allow to flourish in the background while we pretend everything's fine. And maybe, finally, it's time to stop pretending. So, if this video hit home, give it a like so it reaches more people, and subscribe if you want more sharp, honest looks at the systems shaping our lives. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Should Australia crack down harder on gambling, or is it still, for most, just a bit of fun? Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, stay curious.